Welcome to the Languages Pedagogy podcast, where today we crack open one of the hardest, most personal questions in education. What happens when the calling changes? In part 1 of our series, Career Transitions for Teachers, Finding Your Next Step, I sit down with a thoughtful, inspiring Mike Leaman, a former educator who dared to ask himself the question so many teachers quietly carry. Is it time to go? Together, we dive into the moment the spark ignites, the emotional tug that signals change is near. We talk burnout, bold decisions, and the identity crisis that follows when you've lived and breathed teacher for years. This isn't just about career shifts, it's about life pivots. And whether you're just beginning to feel that tug or you're knee deep in self doubt, you're not alone. So, sit comfortably, grab your coffee, and let's get started. All right. Welcome to the Languages Pedagogy podcast. Thank you very much for joining us today. And today we have a really special guest. Today we have Mike Leaman here. And please, welcome. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, Mike. Thanks so much for inviting me on. It's a real privilege and a pleasure to be here today. So thank you and welcome to all your wonderful listeners. My name's Mike. You can probably tell from my accent, but I'm British. I'm from England, and I was a teacher for many years and a senior leader in schools, what's often called like an administrator, in other parts of the world. And I've left teaching and now I run my own business called Classroom Exit Coach. So I help and support teachers to find new careers, to develop their own businesses, find new opportunities, and rediscover their value away from the classroom. And it's a real pleasure to do that. And I've worked with people from all over the world. I primarily work with people in Britain, where I'm from, but I definitely have connections across the globe, and that's why it's a real pleasure to be speaking to you today, because I know you've got some fantastic connections all around the world.
Wow, that sounds really good. Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure actually for me as well to have you here because I think one of the things that you have here, it's something that we really need now. Because right now, you know that the teaching career is not like the same or it's not that's as easy as we think. We have a
Mm,
lot of teachers deficit, let's call it that way, shortage. We don't have
mm,
teachers right now. People just quitting, people don't want to actually keep going because different situations. And they already started to become a teacher,
mm,
but now they are facing something over there. They're like in this point in their life, like, why did I study to become a teacher? I'm not making a
mm.
good life out of it. What can I do? So here's Mike. Here's
That's my
Mike.
job. That's what I'm all about. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
So I got, as I just told you before, I have a lot of listeners actually from South America as well, North America, and part of Russia and Europe. So they want to actually do the move, but they don't know actually how to do it, how to start,
Mm.
because this is very hard.
Yep.
So to start working on this one, we just got several segments here. So the first one is the spark. Why leave the classroom? Why do we have to leave the classroom? So do you remember the moment you knew you were ready for a change?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think, my experience is very much in the sort of the English, school system. But I think the things that I talk about and from connecting with people from all over the world, the problems that I faced are very similar problems all around the world. And for me, it's kind of, there were sort of three key things, I suppose, which was, feeling kind of undervalued, in the system. So you don't feel
Yes.
like you're able to really make a difference because you don't feel like anyone really cares, whether it's government or whether it's parents or, some people do, but a lot of people don't. And that was really, you know, you want to think that a lot of people care about education, but unfortunately, a lot of people don't care about education. It's not a top priority. And then there's the kind of underfunding side of things as well. So there's this whole like it's not about money. We don't go in for it for money, but we should be paid a fair wage. And I think across the world, teachers
Exactly.
are paid quite poorly compared to other professions, especially, as a professional group, you've gone to university, gone higher education, done our degrees, spent years
Yeah.
qualifying in something and training for something, and then just, compared to other people who've gone onto different career paths, we're not making anywhere near as much money. Plus, we're working like a crazy amount of hours more than they are. So it's not about one job. Like it's not a competition, but it does feel very unfair on sort of the education system. And I think the third thing for me is like the whole system across the world is like overloaded. So we're constantly being asked as teachers to kind of do more every single year. There's like every time we're like, there's more pressures, there's more things, and all those
Exactly.
things are, they're important things. They're like, oh, now you've got to focus on student mental health. Like, obviously that's really important, but like something's got to give. You can't do everything. Like,
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, you said it. Exactly.
yeah,
Impossible actually, because everything is about the psychological matters. I mean, I got no problem with it, but there's a
mm,
point where people just take it to the another extreme, you know?
yeah,
If it cares too much, it's a problem. If you don't care, it's also a problem. But there's not like a middle point there. You put it in
yeah.
a really good perspective there. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I
And
think I think so. Yeah, it's really hard to get it right, and there's so much focus on like student well-being and mental health, and there's not really that much focus on teacher well-being and mental health. I'm sure we'll talk about that today as well, but I think
yeah,
that's a big problem in the system. So yeah, absolutely, completely agree.
definitely. And one of the things that you were saying actually right now, but it just come to my mind, it's definitely the problems that we have in the teaching system, in the educational system. It's just the whole world. Definitely.
Definitely.
There's no
Yeah.
teacher in the world that can stand up and say, "Hey, no, I get paid really well. My school really take care of me. Yes,
Yeah.
and I have this and I have that." No, not nothing. Not so long ago, I was actually talking to one of the teachers from Argentina as well. Just same situation. From Argentina, from Patagonia, all the way to the north is to Russia, and then to the other
Mm.
side in China, and then to the other side in America. Same
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah.
So, what emotions came up for you when you first considered stepping away from teaching?
Yeah, it's a real challenging one, Mike. I think, and there's so many different emotions, really. I mean, kind of there's definitely a kind of sadness and there's definitely a sort of fear.
Hmm.
There's sadness because you're walking away from something that you spent so long training for,
Exactly.
and sort of focused and you're so dedicated to, and you went into teaching to make a difference and to kind of like really, have a bit of a social impact. So having to walk away from that definitely feels sad because there are bits of the job that are really good. There are bits of the job that are, despite all the bad things, and there's lots of bad things, there are those little moments that, you remember why you're doing it and that's really
Exactly.
nice. But those moments are sort of harder and harder to find now. They become like fewer and farther between. So I think there's a sadness. There's also a kind of a grief, in terms of you're sort of grieving for this life that you're losing, and you're
Exactly.
not really sure who you are anymore, and there's like an identity shift, and that
It's
can be
like, do you
really
really
hard,
want it? You don't want it? I mean, what is it that I want in that point, right? You get like,
Yeah,
I don't know what I
yeah.
want.
And it's really hard to know what you want, and that's why a lot of people stay is
Yeah,
because they don't know what they want, and that's fine. Like, but we need to spend a bit more time maybe thinking about what are those pathways and what else could we do. And for me, I knew I wanted to go, but it was fear is a big factor. Like, am I making the wrong decision? I got my family to think about, and but the reason I was leaving is for family. I wanted to spend more time with my family. I wanted to
yeah.
provide them with a better quality of life, because for me, being in education, I was working like 80 hours a week, barely seeing my
My God.
family, out of the door. I got used to get up at 5 in the morning. I drive to school at 6, so I'd be behind my desk at school about 6:30 in the morning. Then, because I was second in charge of a large secondary school, so this is kind of like teenagers, like
Oh,
11 to
oh
18 year
no.
olds in the UK, and about 1,100 kids. And then I would work like 12 hours, then drive home. My daughter would already be asleep. I'd have dinner and then basically start working
And
again.
putting aside all the commuting and all that and being over there for 12 hours, it's the
Yeah.
psychological pressure that you have to experience in a school, and then coming
Yeah.
back home with all that psychological pressure and all the problems that you have to listen. Oh, it must be
Yeah.
killing.
Oh, it was. It was really emotionally
Yeah,
stressful,
draining.
like draining. Draining's a great word.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It was really draining, and it took its toll on me. And so although I was leaving to kind of spend more time in my family, I guess you also have that fear of like, am I
Exactly.
making the wrong decision for my family? Because what about money and what about security and pensions and all those kind of things, that you might worry about for the
Exactly.
longer term. Um, so yeah, there's a real mixture. But then when you do leave and you get out successfully, I know we'll talk about this, but that's the best feeling in the world because,
Uh,
the
definitely.
grass is often greener.
After having that issue like you had, for example, like being 12
Mm.
hours in the school and all that, and just coming back home and everybody is sleeping. What are you enjoying?
Yeah,
Nothing.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
that was basically the realization moment,
yeah,
right? 12 hours working, no time for family. That's it.
yeah.
How did others react when you started talking about this change? For example, your family. I
Mm.
guess you actually discussed this with your family.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. It was
How
it
was
was a
it?
big decision. Yeah, oh, it's difficult. It's a challenge because on the one hand they want to support you and they want you to figure out what's best for you. But on the other hand, they remember the reasons why you went into it. And they also know that, like the term teacher, everybody knows what a teacher is. Everyone knows that a teacher, like everyone in the world knows the job title teacher and what a teacher
Exactly.
does. And to particularly like your parents maybe of like an older generation, they kind of know that means like stability. They know it means like a safe job. And when you say I'm going to leave that and I don't really know what I'm going to do next, that can just ring alarm bells. Like, okay, what, why are you making this decision? Have you really thought about it? They can question you a little bit, and they mean to do it in like a gentle way. They're trying to be supportive, but it can make you doubt yourself. It can really kind of,
Yeah.
you can think, is it just me? Maybe it is just me. Maybe the system's okay, but maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I need to change.
Yeah,
But like
exactly.
like we've already spoken about, there's teachers listening from all over the world right now saying the same things, having listing the same problems. So it's not you. It is the system. The system is broken on like a global scale. It's broken.
Well,
You
I'm
know.
I'm pretty glad actually to hear that from you because it is. It's also my feeling, and it's the feeling of a lot of teachers around the world right now. And as I just told you, I was talking to teachers like from Patagonia all the way up to the north,
Mm.
and all of them have the same feeling. The system is completely broken. It's
Yeah.
a failure. It's collapse. That's it.
Yeah.
Teachers, we are the career that make careers, and
Yeah.
anyway, we are underpaid. Nothing cares, and that makes us feel even bad.
Mm.
Worse, like, what is this? What am I doing? Of course, and the family, what are they gonna say about it? I'm gonna change this career. Is it gonna be good or not? So, what would you say to someone who's just now starting to feel that internal shift?
Mm. I think, the biggest thing that can hold you back is fear. Your fear of the unknown, the fear of what's next, and also it gets a bit overwhelming sometimes because, you could Google something like careers for teachers or like new career, and like 1,000 things might come up and you can be like, oh no, what, I don't know, this is too much. I don't have much time. I think the biggest thing to do is like, firstly, recognize that it's okay to leave. Like, it's okay. Like
Mhm.
millions of people leave. So, for example, in Britain, in the UK, every single day in the UK, 110 teachers leave the profession. So, and we're a
What a
reasonably
number.
sized, country. We're like 70 million, but like, 110 people walk away from education every single day, and like that's a big number. It's a scary number. Each one of those
Definitely.
people have absolutely. Each one of those people have a story and a reason why. But like when you're the one leaving, it can feel like you're on your own and you can feel really isolated and that like,
Exactly.
but so I think the first thing to sort of know in that scenario is like you're not alone. There are millions of teachers who well used to be teachers who are now doing other things. Um, but it's just not spoken about enough and it's not we don't enough attention isn't paid on these issues because
Yes.
yeah, the issues are huge, and who knows if it's fixable or not. Like, but yeah, it's okay to leave is the first thing you need to know. Yeah.
Exactly. And this is pretty funny. Might be funny, but yeah, we want to actually leave the the teaching career. But anyway, we moved to another part of the system that is quite the same. I mean, we just moved from one system to another
Mm,
because some people actually just, I mean, totally, they stop teaching just because they want to become, I don't know, uh, work for a company, anything, I don't know, business stuff and everything. But anyway, they also have their own struggles there.
mm.
So here's the point to start something from yourself. I
Yep.
think that's what really, really works in this case. And this episode is sponsored by Classroom Exit Coach.
At Classroom Exit Coach, I help educators transition out of the classroom and into new, meaningful careers. This isn't just about changing jobs, it's about rediscovering your value and learning how to communicate it. Through personalised coaching, group workshops, and resources, I can support you with rebuilding your confidence, identifying and articulating your transferable skills, crafting a strong CV and cover letter that actually gets you noticed, optimizing your LinkedIn profile to attract new opportunities, and preparing you for interviews with confidence. If you're ready to explore what's next and learn how to position yourself for success, I'd love to help.
Yeah, and I love it when people do find new jobs in companies and organizations, but I think you're right. I really love it when people develop their own businesses and their own brands and their own, ideas because, teachers so many transferable skills, and I think we'll talk more about this. But the skills that you've got make you a perfect kind of what we call like a freelancer or an entrepreneur. They
Mhm.
are perfect kind of entrepreneurial skills because you've got the
Yes,
creativity, the passion, the vision, the organization.
exactly.
And even if you've got like a little spark of an idea. You know, follow it and see where it goes. What have you got to lose? Because yes, there's a
Exactly.
risk that your business might not take off or that it might not turn into what you want. But the bigger risk is that you stay in a career that you hate and it makes you unhappy and it destroys your life.
Exactly.
That's the bigger risk. The risk of a failing business or a struggling business is not as big as what people might think because you can always change, you can always pivot, you can always do things to save your own business. But a career where you are, you know, stuck and you don't have very much control is always going to
True.
be the same. So
True.
I agree with you, Mike. I agree with you.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Well, um, yes, now that we just passed the first segment, let's go to the segment two. We got
Mm,
losing the teacher identity. Who
mm.
am I without the classroom? And that's what we're talking about. Who am I without the classroom? I don't know. What am I going to do? I mean, this is what I can do, but outside the classroom, I don't know. And that's exactly what you were saying, that idea, that little part of creativity that the teachers have there, just one of them, just spark, follow it. That's a really good one there. But
Mm.
what part of your identity was hardest to let go of?
Mm. Yeah, it is a big thing, and like reflecting back on leaving, it's a big shift. It's a big mindset shift
Hmm.
in terms of because it's also there's like the way you go about your day and how you view yourself, as a teacher. A teacher is like a very prestigious job, like it's a very credible job. Like people look at it and they go, "Oh, teacher, you've got very must be very clever, you must be very organized, very much,
Yes.
very resilient, compassionate." People have got like an assumption of what a teacher is, and there's like a status symbol around that. So, and like it's a really easy, like you can say the word teacher and people have like an image of you straight away. But then in other
Yeah.
careers, like when you say what you are, if you're like for now, people ask me what I am, and I'm like, I guess I'm a coach, I'm a businessman, I'm a strategist,
Yeah.
I'm an entrepreneur, there's lots of different words, but those words don't have the same. Like people just think, oh, people have got a load of loaded, messaging when they hear
Yeah.
like businessman or whatever, like it's like, oh, that must be like horrible and sort of like very like dog eat dog and sort of but it's not obviously but with teacher you get lots of positive associations if you know what I mean, so there is that big shift in terms of identity, but then there's also the kind of the so there's that mental shift, but there's also like the practical shift in terms of like the day to day, because when you're in a school or a classroom you're living to like a very strict routine. In lots of schools there's like a
Yeah.
bell, there's different periods or lessons or kind of like, and your structure of what your day looks like is, you're just living in this kind of endless cycle of different terms or kind of what,
Yeah.
semesters or whatever you want to call it. And it's very, 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 what's the word? Like rigid. It's a very rigid
Rigid. Yes.
system. Yeah. So when you leave, you've also got that identity shift in terms of like so much freedom, so much kind of you can set your own hours, you can work when you want to, particularly if you're going to go work for your own business and do your own thing. There's that massive identity shift of like no one tells you what to do or where to be at a certain time.
Yeah.
And that again can be really exciting, but also quite scary.
Of course, if you don't actually know how to manage your time or how to manage yourself or your feelings, that's it.
Yeah.
That was all
Yeah.
for it. Go back to the classroom, I would say.
Mm.
But how did you start redefining yourself outside the teacher label? Because that's
Mm.
what you were actually telling me a little bit. So how did you start doing it?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is for me it comes back to having conversations with people. So talk to as many because as a teacher you get like a very like narrow view of the world. Like you're only really interacting with children and young adults and like you're also interacting with other teachers. So you
Exactly.
might have like your partner or your family who are like in the wider world, but actually you're only getting a very small window into the wider world. Oh, and I think actually one of the best things to do if you're thinking about career change or doing your own business is just start talking to people who are in other careers. Like take a genuine interest, be curious about what do they do and how do they get into it, and what sort of are the strengths and the weaknesses and the benefits of their business and what do they do, and be curious because then you start to figure out what you really want and not just what you're leaving behind, like the push factors, like the things that are
Exactly.
pushing me away, but like what am I excited about? Like I want my life to look like that. I want to do that kind of job. Like I want to have
Exactly.
that kind of identity. Um, if you focus too much on the negatives, then you know your reasons for leaving, but you won't know what to do next. You can leave, but then what happens
Then
then?
what happened? Exactly.
Yeah. So that's where that positive thing needs to come in. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's one of the things that actually I really like what you're saying because I feel like it also happened to me a little bit, and I'm actually all in the same path. Or actually,
Mm.
I'm not the coach, but I think I feel myself also identified in this way. Just I'm still in the classroom, but it's been less and less, and I've been doing that transition little by little. So I
Mm.
kind of feel it. So what new parts of yourself have you discovered since leaving the classroom? What did you
Yeah,
say?
it's a great
Oh, you know
question.
what? After actually just coming out of the classroom, now I just found this. I didn't know I had that ability.
Yeah. It's funny because you use so many skills in teaching, but you don't really think about it
Exactly.
you're just doing it. You've got like
True.
a certain number of children in front of you, and you just go into like autopilot. It's a bit like driving a car or riding a bike. But in a lot more of a technical sense. You're making lessons, you're teaching, you're asking questions, and
Yeah.
you don't really think about the skills that you're using. But for me, like the
Hmm.
biggest things that I've been able to work on more than ever, and this is because I've got more headspace, I've got more freedom, is like creativity, like being creative. Like I love writing, I love going on LinkedIn. I'm obsessed with kind of language and the power of like, I write my posts, but then I kind of play with words and I go, no, maybe that word's more impactful than that word. What am I trying to say? How am I going to make sure it resonates, like lands with my audience? Um, and I like doing that one because I've actually got time to do it now, whereas before it's really hard to make time when you're in
Impossible.
teaching because
Exactly.
it's just so full on. But also I've got more headspace. I feel like my brain is like firing on a lot more energy, and that is then like allowing me to be a lot more creative, which means that I'm a better coach for my clients. Because I'm bringing the energy that maybe they don't have because they're in
Hmm.
teaching. Um, so yeah, for the biggest thing for me is like being more creative, being more free, having more energy. That has been a massive identity shift for me, which is great. Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, you're just rediscovering yourself. Like
Mm.
now you can actually just notice that, okay, being in the classroom, it was me. This was me. But now coming out of the classroom, now this is me. I was like, wow, so many ideas now you have. And you can
Yeah.
actually share those ideas with your clients, as you said, and that's pretty good because that's also helping, and that's something that is also helping you at a certain
Yeah.
point because you feel like, oh, I feel so good actually helping others, seeing these people actually just do that transition and they reach their goals. Definitely, it's something like really rewarding. Because
Mm.
that's one of the things that we have as teachers. We want actually to be rewarded with money because with money we live, but we also want to feel like that part, the human part, is like, well, I helped that student, I feel happy,
Yeah.
I did
Yeah.
something. But now you're doing it with grown-ups, with other teachers,
Yeah.
which it
Yeah.
must be really really good feeling there, right?
Oh, it's very empowering. Like it's a massive impact, like when you help kids, get through their classes or, grades and go on to what they want to do. It's like it's great, it's exciting, but like they've got so many opportunities in front of them. But when you're dealing
Yeah.
with like a teacher who feels really stuck and, lacking in confidence, and you're able to turn that around and like help them completely transform their lives. But it's not just their lives, because like as we spoke about, it's their family and their
Yeah.
children and their partner and like it has like a massive impact on everyone around them,
Yeah.
not just them. So like of course helping children is like amazing, but helping adults who feel stuck is like another level. It's great.
Definitely. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Because there's a big difference. I mean, you're just helping one kid in the school. And as
Mm,
you said, it's not bad. But of course, you helping a teacher, you know that teacher behind he has a family. So you're
mm,
helping an entire family there. So like redirect their own goals and everything. It's like it's really cool. It's really nice. It's
mm.
something that I would actually categorize it in one of the most important careers to me. I mean, someone who can help you doing that. You gotta be also like a psychologist there.
Yeah, you've got to bring in a lot of different skills. You've got
Yeah,
to, understand like where people are coming from on an emotional level. You need to think about like what practical support they need. You need to think about like their background and their experience and what jobs might suit them. So you're a coach, you're an advisor, you're a strategist,
advice.
you're doing a lot of like reading and reviewing of documents for them. You've got to be there when they're feeling down and like when they sometimes where they might love a job, they get an interview and they get rejected, like you've got to pick them back
Yeah.
up again. It's hard work, but like yeah, it's really rewarding. It's
No, no,
yeah.
definitely it's a hard word, but yeah, rewarding, and I love that. I love that word because it's something that we teachers need, and we
Mm,
have it in a school, outside the school, everywhere. So let's just go
yeah.
to the segment three now. It's been really cool this conversation. Thank you. So transferable magic, skills that shine beyond the school walls. Can
Mm,
you share an example where a teacher's skill gave you an unexpected advantage?
mm. Yeah. I think like I said already, there's so many different skills, that teachers have. And
Mm,
if we kind of categorize them broadly, like into two groups, you've got like soft skills. I think, soft skills, often things like communication, organization,
mhm.
those kind of things, being compassionate. They're actually quite hard things. Like I think the word soft skills is not very good because like actually
It's
those
not
things
so
are really
soft.
they're not so soft. They're really challenging. They're really hard to develop. And they're
Yeah,
also the things that employers really, really value. So like those are the skills actually they're like gold dust because knowledge, we can all learn things. Like you can learn processes, you can learn policies, you can learn technical knowledge, but those skills and behaviors that you have as a teacher, those are the things that are really hard to teach. To teach someone to be organized, to teach someone to be compassionate, that's hard work. It takes
exactly.
time because when you're an adult, you've kind of those things are ingrained in you already. So you've got those soft skills, then you've got those kind of technical skills. So the technical skills are things like your subject knowledge and whatever subject you teach, like is it languages, is it history, is it English literature, but also your knowledge of like whether it be like budget procedures or like whatever it happens to be in the job
Exactly.
you are in.
Yeah.
I think pathways that have been like where people can use those skills are very surprised. People are always really surprised about how powerful like being a good communicator can lead you to, and
Yeah.
you as a languages background, you'll absolutely know this, but the ability to speak in front of other people and be engaging and be confident and be really clear on your messaging, that is such a power. Like teachers do that like 5 or 6 times a day, but there are
Yeah,
loads of people in this world that that they hate. They'll be the worst nightmare would be to stand up in front of a bunch of people
yeah.
and talk.
This is like a
Um,
phobia. Yeah, they have actually also.
yeah. People wake up in the middle of the night and they're like, I'm cold sweat. Like I had to give a presentation. I wasn't prepared. Teachers are doing that like 5 times a day. You know, running into the classroom, going
Ooh,
like, right, what are we doing
exactly.
today, guys? But yeah, that like communication, it comes back to that core one that we do every single time, every single day as a teacher. But that is something that can lead you down so many different pathways, whether it be like written communication, social media, verbal, like speaking in front of others. Like there's loads of different ways you can go into career plan like options with that. But
Exactly.
yeah.
So, do you think actually this word like communicator that power because that's to have the power of to communicate. It's something that
Mm.
not everybody has, and you just mentioned it. So, do you think this is one of the strength that most people underestimate in the real world about teachers?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I think so. Because I think people see teaching as you're basically like reading a script, like you're a bit like an actor. Like you're just reading it, you're just like delivering lines. And you wouldn't necessarily say an actor is a good communicator. They might be good at acting, but they haven't got the drive and the vision and all that sort of stuff. They're not
Yeah,
actually coming up with the stuff behind the scenes. A good communicator is someone who like believes in what they're doing and brings the passion and the experience and the wisdom and also is able to answer questions about it. And I think, yeah, some businesses are very good at sort of seeing teachers as great communicators, but some have like negative perceptions and like they maybe see teachers as, not great communicators. And where that comes from is you know it's
yeah, I know
because
where you're
often
going.
often they only hear of like bad teachers through their own kids, like so the kids will come home from school and you'll be like, how was your day? Da, 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 talking to your children, and the kids might go, oh, this teacher's awful. They might tell you about the bad teachers, but also when they will remember from when they were a kid, when they were at school, they remember the bad teachers as well because it's funny or it's kind of like it was a crazy event or whatever.
Yeah,
And you perhaps don't remember like the kind of like the daily things that pushed you forward, that made you think, made you reflect, made you a better person. Like those things maybe don't stick as much as like the crazy, funny, silly events, like when a teacher got it wrong, So
definitely.
yeah,
Yeah, definitely. This is a really good this is a good case here because that actually reminded me of a teacher. Pretty funny. Same situation actually happened with me because I was actually thinking about this teacher. Yeah, there are some things that people just remember of the teachers, just the bad things, but they don't actually remember the good things that made them go forward or made them better. So, yeah, it's true. How can
yeah.
teachers learn to talk about their skills then? Because, yeah, people actually have a perception, parents, any
Mm.
other person, they have this perception of teachers that maybe they're not good communicators. But how can a teacher convince himself or herself or convince others that they have really good skill or to talk about their own skills?
Mm.
Something that can resonate, I don't know, for their own business or to employers. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a big topic. It's something I spend a lot of time with my clients talking about. What
Hmm.
are your top skills? How do you know how, you might feel that you're a good communicator, but how do you know that? Like, what evidence is there? Like, that can be quite hard to sort of prove, really. Like that's why those soft skills are really hard because proving that you're good at them is difficult. The only way to do it is
It's
by
different.
showing someone, but then that's quite difficult to do. Is like so one of the first things I do is I kind of do like what we call like a skills audit or like assessment, and I've got like a list of skills, and we go through them, and we rank them, and we put them in terms of like what are the ones you feel really confident in, and what are the ones that you don't feel so confident in, and we try and put them in a sort of list of like order of like why have you put that at the top? Let's talk about it. Why do you
Hmm.
feel that like it could be like planning or like data analysis, like
Got it.
like anything like that. Like
Those are the
what
positive
maybe
ones. Something like that.
yeah. Yeah, like why have you put those in your top? Like
Hmm.
let's unpick them a little bit. And then from that, try and get people to think about kind of like the scale of what they were doing. So like, okay, you're a good communicator. How many people do you communicate to on like a daily basis? So you can put it in your CV, or you can put that in like a job application. On an average day, I communicate with 300 people, you
Thousands of
know,
people.
thousands of people maybe. Yeah, exactly. Especially if you're like doing like a school assembly, or like, getting all the whole school together or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it's like, how can you evidence them? The second step is like, what evidence is there? How is that? What does that look like? So, if it's organization, like what does that look like on a day-to-day basis? Write down why do you need to be organized? What does that look
Yeah.
like? Let's get some meat on the bones almost to sort of talk about that. Because if you've got confidence over your own skills, then you're able to sell them more, and you get more clarity over like
Exactly.
where you can go with those skills.
So what do you do actually in this case with the weaknesses? Let's talk about the skills that they actually just put them in, like the worst one. So
Mm,
what do you do with those skills? I mean, do you work over those skills as well,
mm.
just to turn them from weaknesses into strengths or something like it?
It's a good question. So it depends what they are, but everyone's got weaknesses. Everyone's going to have a skill that's at the bottom of the list,
Yeah.
So there's always going to be one thing that you're not as good at as the other things, and that's perfectly normal. So don't feel like you need to be an expert on everything.
Mhm.
But a very common interview question is something like, "Tell us about your, biggest weakness," or "Tell us about the thing that you're working on." And
Exactly.
like that's quite a difficult question if you haven't really thought about it, and you want to give a genuine answer, and you want to give an answer that is really well thought out. You don't want to say something like, "Oh, I never turn up on time," or like, like I
Exactly.
always miss my alarm clock, or I'm always late to work, or I always miss deadlines or something. You don't want to
Definitely.
say that. But like if you've got an awareness of what is your true weakness, like it could be, like I take too much on, like I say yes too often. And then you need to work on kind of like how can you turn that into a strength, or how can you show that you're working on it? Like,
Yeah.
I take on too much work, and that's something that I'm aware of. And one of the things I'm learning is how to delegate and how to say no and put boundaries in, so that all they're hearing is like, this guy likes to work hard, you know. But you've got
That's a
to you've got
different
to,
that's a
you've got to
different,
rephrase it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Changing
that's
changing
why it's
perspective
important.
and
Yeah.
paradigm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
but if it is something that if it is like a really important thing like communication, then what can we do to improve that? Like, is there like a course we could go on? Is there like like, it doesn't have to cost any money? Is there a YouTube series we could watch? Is there something we could do together to work on that? How could you, if you're still in your current job in school, like what opportunities are there in school for you to work on that before you leave? There's loads of different possibilities, but it's only possible if you know what those skills are, and like where do they sit on that list, if you like.
Exactly. And that wraps part one of our conversation with Mike Leaman. From the first flicker of doubt to the emotional storm of stepping away from the beloved role, it's clear this journey is as much about rediscovery as it is about reinvention. If something stirred in you today, if you've ever looked around your classroom and wonder what else is out there, I hope you know this. You are not broken. You are brave. And you are allowed to want more. Stick around for part two, where we talk transferable skills, reclaiming confidence, and building a purpose-filled life beyond the classroom. Until next time, stay tuned and stay with the Languages Pedagogy Podcast.